On a scorching afternoon in Ouagadougou, Ibrahim Traoré sat silently at his desk, eyes locked on the thick file before him. Inside were the names of 17 military officers, foreign bank accounts, encrypted messages, and a detailed plan for a coup to unfold within 60 days. His intelligence team had spent months compiling evidence, recorded conversations, surveillance logs, and proof of foreign agents scheming to seize control of Burkina Faso. Traoré glanced at his watch. The conspirators were preparing to move now, but what awaited them wasn't gunfire. It was handcuffs. Rising from his chair, Traoré gazed out the presidential palace window. The sun was sinking low, its deep crimson glow streaking across the horizon like a warning of the storm to come. Folding his hands behind his back, he inhaled slowly. Betrayals like these were nothing new. Since taking power, Western interference had never ceased. "Are we ready, Captain Konaté?" he asked calmly without turning. "Yes, Mr. President," replied Captain Konaté, his loyal intelligence chief standing firmly by his side. "All units are in position. None of the traitors will escape." The atmosphere in the room grew dense, heavy with the weight of what was about to unfold. Captain Konaté had stood beside Traoré from the beginning, one of the few men he trusted without question. Traoré returned to his desk and pressed play on the audio recording. Though the words were hard to hear, he knew them by heart. "The operation begins at midnight. We'll intercept Traoré's convoy at the North Gate. Our French allies have helicopters ready to extract us. Once the job is done, $50,000 will be wired to each of our accounts. If we fail, our contacts in Paris will arrange safe passage." The voice belonged to Colonel Deo, a man who had fought shoulder to shoulder with Traoré for over a decade. Together they had battled insurgents, rescued villages, and shared water from the same canteen. 6 months ago, they had liberated a village together as villagers cheered around them. And now Deo was ready to sell his country for foreign dollars. Captain Konaté spoke quietly. "Mr. President, why are you so calm? These men are plotting to kill you." Traoré slowly sat and stared at the photograph on his desk. The smiling face of Thomas Sankara, Burkina Faso's revolutionary hero, Africa's Che Guevara, murdered for standing against Western interests. "Because justice, not anger, is needed right now," Traoré said softly. "My life is nothing, Konaté. The independence of our nation, the dignity of our people, that is what matters." He ran his fingers gently over Sankara's photo. The man who had renamed the country from Upper Volta to Burkina Faso, the land of upright people. The irony of the name weighed on him. A sharp knock broke the silence. Major Urao, commander of the Special Forces, entered, sweat shining on his brow. "Mr. President, they're moving. Colonel Deo and his men are armed and have left the northern barracks." Traoré nodded once. "Begin the operation." In an instant, the palace erupted into silent, precise motion. Phones rang. Radios crackled. Presidential guards took their positions like shadows. This was the culmination of months of patience and preparation. Outside, cicadas sang their evening song, oblivious to the human drama unfolding. The city of Ouagadougou moved with its usual rhythm. Street vendors closing stalls, families gathering for dinner, children playing in courtyards. From the palace monitors, Traoré watched as raids unfolded simultaneously across the city. Military outposts, barracks, and secret meeting locations. On one screen, Colonel Deo and 4 officers were seen approaching a back entrance to the palace, weapons drawn, determination etched on their faces. "For Burkina Faso," Traoré whispered. Suddenly, loyal guards surrounded the plotters. Weapons clattered to the ground. Shock painted Dio's face as cameras captured every detail. Not a single shot was fired. Elsewhere, Captain Moussa, Traoré's old military academy classmate, was arrested while attempting to seize the national radio station. He carried a pre-written announcement declaring Traoré's ousting. By dawn at the military parade ground, Traoré stood before the 17 captured officers. They knelt with cuffed hands, their ranks stripped. Behind them, the red, green, and yellow-starred flag of Burkina Faso flapped boldly against the morning sky. Cameras recorded everything. This was more than a punishment. It was a message to the entire continent. Dressed in a simple uniform without insignia, Traoré approached the conspirators, his steps steady and his gaze unwavering. "What brought you here?" he asked, his voice echoing across the field. "Money? The promise of power? Or are you simply cowards?" Colonel Dio lifted his head, shame and fear swimming in his eyes. "Mr. President, we were just—" "I am no longer your president," Traoré snapped. "I am the voice of the people of Burkina Faso, and you have betrayed your people." The words cut deeper than any weapon. Around them, loyal soldiers stood at attention, many of whom had once fought, eaten, and laughed alongside these traitors. An assistant handed Traoré a thick file. Opening it, he began reading. "Colonel Dio, on June 12th, you met Captain Laurent of French intelligence in Paris. You were offered $200,000. You accepted." Dio's face paled. His eyes darted, searching for the leak that had unraveled their plan. "Captain Wada, in the past 2 months, 145,000 euros was deposited into your Swiss account. The funds were routed through 5 shell companies connected to a U.S. State Department fund. Every name, every account, every secret meeting, documented and exposed." The conspirators turned ashen as Traoré meticulously unveiled each betrayal. He closed the file and faced the cameras broadcasting live to millions of Burkinabe. "These," he said, holding up the file, "are the tools of those who wish to keep Africa in chains. Our brothers and sons, bought with dollars, manipulated by fear, used to serve foreign masters." Angry murmurs rose from the crowd. Mothers wept. Veterans shook their heads in disbelief. Traoré raised his hand and silence returned. "But today we send a message to them and their masters. Burkina Faso is not for sale. Africa's dignity is not negotiable. And betrayal comes with a price." The midday sun bore down, heat shimmering off the ground. Yet no one moved, every soul transfixed. Traoré stepped closer to the conspirators. Some flinched, expecting death. Instead, he spoke softly. "We will not kill you," he said. "We are not like them. Justice is worth more than revenge." The conspirators looked bewildered. In the brutal logic of Coup, blood usually answered blood. This restraint was alien. At his signal, guards lifted the prisoners to their feet. "These men," Traoré announced to the cameras, "will be tried publicly and fairly. Evidence will be presented. Foreign accounts will be frozen. The world will see. Africa is awakening. We are taking our destiny into our own hands." As the traitors were led away, phones across the palace rang urgently. Western embassies, international organizations, foreign press, all scrambling for meetings. But Traoré's eyes remained on his people. "This is only the beginning," he murmured to his assistant. "The real storm is coming." He was right. Within hours, statements flowed from France, the U.S., and other powers. They expressed concern, hope for human rights protection, and respect for democracy. Traoré recognized the diplomatic code: release our puppets or face sanctions, media attacks, and worse. But those threats no longer carried weight. 2 days later, Traoré stood before his nation once more, this time in full military dress, medals gleaming, a rare occasion. He stood in Sankara Square. Thousands gathered around him, not bussed in, not coerced, but drawn by hope. "My brothers and sisters of Burkina Faso," he began, fire blazing in a voice, "I ask you, who does Africa's wealth belong to? Our gold? Our uranium? Our diamonds? Who owns these?" The crowd roared as one. "We do! Our land, our water, our future. His voice fell to a hushed, deliberate gravity, pulling the crowd closer, making every ear strain, every heart lean forward to capture his words. There are those, Traoré intoned, his gaze hard and unflinching, who sell us out from within, who barter their own brothers, their own mothers, even the futures of their own children to foreign masters. Across the massive square, colossal screens flickered to life. Images of the apprehended conspirators flashed one after another. Bundles of confiscated foreign currency, intercepted encrypted messages, classified communications. The crowd gasped. Look, Traoré said, extending his arm toward the screens. This is the face of betrayal. This is how the colonial mentality operates. While we rest, they conspire. While we labor, they plunder. While we battle for freedom, they whisper into the ears of their overseers. Suddenly, slides of authentic French and American intelligence documents illuminated the screens. Code names, operational blueprints, financial allocations, and targeted plans, each more damning than the last. The world, watching through countless live streams, stood dumbstruck. Never before had such concrete evidence been paraded so boldly, and certainly not by a sitting head of state. How did we acquire these? Traoré asked, the faintest smile playing on his lips. Because today, we too have eyes, we too have ears, and above all, we too possess minds. Laughter erupted from the throng, not the nervous kind, but one laced with raw pride. The suffocating tension dissolved into something else, empowerment. No longer were they merely the downtrodden, waiting to be rescued or exploited. Their government, for the first time, had shown it could wage battles of intelligence and outmaneuver powerful foreign adversaries. Traoré's voice rose, rich with defiance, echoing across the furthest edges of the plaza. The plotters of this coup sit behind bars today, but their puppeteers recline comfortably in distant palaces. Let them hear me clearly. Your era is drawing to a close. The age of siphoning Africa's lifeblood is dying. We are not your father's Africa. We do not cower. We do not break. And most importantly, we do not slumber. When his speech drew to its thunderous close, it wasn't only Burkina Faso reverberating with his words. From Mali to Guinea, from Niger to as far as Angola and Mozambique, crowds flooded into streets, emboldened and invigorated. Across Africa's cities, they demanded the same reckoning from their own rulers. Inside sleek, diplomatic halls thousands of miles away, panic rippled. Emergency summits were convened behind shuttered doors. The public unveiling of Western intelligence machinations had ignited a crisis. Though the betrayal had been foiled, Traoré knew this was but the prologue. The true battle was only dawning. The titanic struggle to liberate Africa from the lingering chains of colonialism. As dusk cloaked Ouagadougou, Traoré returned to the presidential palace. The day's triumph weighed on him not as relief, but as responsibility pressing down on his shoulders with suffocating force. The path ahead bristled with hazards. Foreign empires would not relinquish their grasp willingly. He paced solemnly through marble corridors, nodding to his guards, men who now stood taller, prouder, more resolute than ever. In the privacy of his office, under dim lamplight, he sifted through thick security dossiers and border surveillance briefings. The nation's pulse was steady but vigilant. Later that evening, standing alone on the palace's terrace, he gazed into the infinite expanse of stars. Sankara, he murmured into the night air, invoking the spirit of the martyred revolutionary. Today we carried your dream a step farther. Above him, the heavens over Burkina Faso shimmered with an uncharacteristic brilliance. In the ensuing days, the backlash intensified. Western media outlets unleashed a torrent of condemnation. branding Traoré an autocrat, an oppressor, a menace to democracy. Economic alerts flowed in warning investors to steer clear. Sanctions were quietly debated in polished conference rooms. The French embassy scaled back operations. The American ambassador demanded an urgent audience, only to be politely informed the president was inspecting agricultural projects in rural hamlets. Yet within Burkina Faso, a metamorphosis had taken root. Citizens organized volunteer patrols around military barracks. Women's associations formed neighborhood watch groups. University students mobilized brigades to counteract foreign disinformation campaigns. In bus stops, markets, homes, and bustling cafes, ordinary people, long silent, began openly dissecting topics once taboo: colonialism, economic exploitation, sovereignty. 1 week after the failed coup, Traoré took another audacious step. He summoned a global press conference inviting journalists from every corner of the world. Western correspondents arrived expecting contrition, perhaps a softened stance under international pressure. Instead, in the Grand National Assembly, a colonial-era edifice reclaimed for African democracy, Traoré marched in flanked by aides bearing box after box of documents. He unveiled ledger books, intercepted communications, weapons with traceable serial numbers, meticulously charting how the coup had been orchestrated from afar. "These are not accusations," he declared calmly, his voice unwavering. "These are facts, and facts cannot be embargoed nor sanctioned." A BBC reporter interjected, "Mr. President, France denies involvement in these alleged plots. How do you respond?" Traoré allowed himself a thin, knowing smile. "Of course they deny it, but the signatures scrawled across these documents belong to their officials. The money trail winds directly into their vaults. The weapons bear their manufacturer's stamps. Tell me, should I trust empty denials or the irrefutable weight of evidence?" The visuals were staggering. Photographs exposed clandestine meetings. Wire transfers connected Western capitals to the coup plotters. The world's media, normally quick to judge African leaders, fell into stunned silence. An Al Jazeera correspondent asked, "Are you positioning yourself against the West, Mr. President? Is this a pivot toward other global powers?" "We are not anti-West," Traoré answered firmly. "We are pro-Africa. We desire partners, not overlords. Investors, not exploiters. Friends, not shadows of colonial rule." By the conference's conclusion, the narrative had dramatically shifted. Questions now barreled towards the governments in Paris and Washington, not towards Traoré. The aftermath rippled far and wide. Young visionaries in neighboring nations spoke out more courageously. Citizens everywhere clamored for transparency in mining contracts and foreign treaties. Ibrahim Traoré, once dismissed as just another soldier in fatigues, had crystallized into a symbol of Africa's new awakening, not through fiery slogans, but through the piercing light of truth. Predictably, economic turbulence followed. Some foreign investors fled. Import prices climbed as veiled trade barriers materialized, yet new alliances blossomed. African nations deepened intracontinental trade, slowly untangling from the economic spiderweb of former colonial powers. Meanwhile, the captured conspirators faced trial. Open courts, international monitors, scrupulous due process. Traoré's budding system was one built not on vengeance, but on justice. 3 months after the failed insurrection, Traoré quietly visited a remote village near the Mali border. No press entourage, no pomp, just a leader reconnecting with his people. Beneath the ancient, sprawling limbs of a baobab tree, village elders gathered. An elderly woman grasped his hands with hers, weathered but steady. "My son," she said gently, her eyes glistening, "we have lived under many leaders, heard many promises. But you, You have given us something rarer than gold. You gave us truth. Traoré sat among them for hours, listening, truly listening. They spoke of dry wells, empty classrooms, barren clinics, concerns far removed from geopolitical chessboards. As twilight approached, a shy young boy approached, clutching a crumpled drawing. It depicted Traoré standing tall, with the words Burkina Faso forever carefully scrawled beneath. "What is your name, young one?" Traoré asked softly. "Thomas," the boy replied, "after Sankara." That evening, as Traoré prepared to return to the capital, his phone buzzed. It was Captain Konate, his chief of intelligence. "Mr. President, we've intercepted new transmissions. They haven't retreated. New agents have infiltrated. Fresh schemes are underway." Traoré felt no surprise. He had always known this was not a battle of months, but of generations. The forces seeking to subdue Africa were cunning and patient. "Keep watching, Konate," he instructed. "Keep listening. And above all, keep enlightening our people. An informed citizenry is our greatest shield." As his convoy rumbled along the dusty roads back towards the capital, Traoré gazed out at the land. The farmers tending their fields, the children bustling in schoolyards, the markets pulsing with life. This was what he was fighting for. Not for personal glory, not for hollow power, but for the simple, inalienable right of his people to carve their own future. The battle against betrayal had been won. The war for true independence roared on, and Ibrahim Traoré was unwaveringly ready.